Good morning, how are you?
Hello, today we'll be playing some Bedwars, 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 Bedwars.
So the way that it works is you play one entire division in the opposite conference. So obviously for the Bills, that's the NFC. But then you also play the team that finished in the same place as you in a game, right? And so the Bucks won the NFC South, the Bills won the
I'm
AFC
gonna
East. So
be.
that's how they ended up playing the Bucks in that game.
All right. And then it would make sense in a way that a team that good to do that would then be slotted for a prime, even though they've had a major shift at quarterback. It's probably not their job to go through every single, slush within the roster to determine whether or not the team's going to be good. Because there's still a chance Tampa Bay could be good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not anticipating a lot from Tampa Bay, especially, with Baker Mayfield at
And of
quarterback.
course, I end up no
But the
teammates.
point there is that the opponent is already selected before the
I'm
season
going to
is
do is
over.
in
You're gonna play the team that wins that division.
Well,
If
Buddha,
you
I'm
win the
team
AFC,
similar.
so the second place team in the AFC East would play the second place team in the NFC in the NFC South, and so on and so forth throughout the entire division.
Interesting. Okay, didn't know. That's really interesting.
And there was a whole lot of talk about getting better games on Thursday night, and the commissioner got some rules changed. I don't see that as a big must-watch TV game.
Oh, they failed on that one. Yeah, they failed.
But I mean, they didn't use a lot, but they did flex a couple, and they changed it so some teams would play twice on Thursday night.
Hey, Jay, let me ask you something before we get to the actual schedule and start breaking it down. Last year at this time, it was like the day before, we vowed we were not going to buy into any leak schedules because we got burned on it. I'm sure maybe even you did at some point, but we're like, leak schedule, let's talk about it. And it was way off, and everybody was jumping on it. The question is, did you actually see a leaked schedule that was legit once it came out?
I did. I didn't report it. I certainly was not going to report it. But the leak schedule that I did see, which was probably somewhere in the range of 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, ended up being really, really close. I don't know that actually speaking of that Tampa game, I don't know that the schedule that I saw said that it was Thursday night. I think it may have just said night game. But I did see a leaked schedule that ended up being fairly accurate. And so it happened. It's interesting, guys. I will tell you that the NFL took some pretty big steps this year to ensure that those schedules did not get leaked from the team.
You're welcome back.
That didn't work, obviously, as you saw. I mean, there were still, rampant leaked schedules everywhere. I mean, I think most people probably had an idea well before ACM every team's schedule. So they're still get out there. I mean, the whole thing has kind of turned into a circus with, they've got they're rolling out these games one by one, starting on Wednesday and then into Thursday. And then, it's kind of like putting bubble gum in the dam, right? You poke one hole, and then another one opens up, and before you know it, the floodgates have opened, and all the games are out, even before that show starts at 8 o'clock.
Right. Okay. All right, so let's go through the schedule and the open against the Jets.
Monday Night Football.
What do you make of it?
I predicted it. We did a roundtable that ran in the paper yesterday morning. I think I said Sunday Night Football, but it ends up being Monday Night Football. But yeah, I think this is a really logical first game for both teams. I think the quarterback matchup is obviously what is so intriguing here, right? And Aaron Rodgers coming over, and this is one of those games that you can just see them on ESPN talking about for 4 months until it finally gets here, and so. I totally understand the appeal of the game to a national TV audience. For the Bills, I think it's a really important game, right? The Jets are a team that played them tough twice last year, including once beating them in New York, and a lot of people are thinking now with Rodgers there that they are going to be a legitimate contender in the AFC East. So if the Bills want to send a message that the division still needs to go through them, what better time to do that than on a Monday night opener.
And much like last year when Russell Wilson went to the Broncos were the darling, right? And they had 6 scheduled primetime games. The New York Jets are that team this year, so they want to get them on primetime as much as possible. And yeah, of course, it makes sense that it's going to be week 1.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can't overstate, the Rodgers addition and what that means for, I mean, obviously he's going to such a big market, right?
This okay.
One of the largest stars in the NFL NFL. Probably now with Tom Brady retired, maybe is the most recognizable player in the NFL, both because of his longevity
That's so
and
well
his career that
played.
he's had. So to have him in a big market,
That was all
not a
Stevie.
surprise at all that you want the Jets on primetime in Week 1. And again, I think the only slight hesitation I had for maybe it not being a game against the Bills was that they've kind of shied away from divisional games in Week 1 in recent years. But obviously that wasn't
My
much
combo.
of a concern, and ultimately they decided to go with the Bills as the opponent.
Yeah, I'm looking at this game, thinking about it, and I wanted to get your take on it because, you wonder, is it an advantage or a disadvantage to Week 1?
My bad.
No film, really. He's going to play very little preseason, and they'll show very little. It's his first game with the Jets, so you really don't know, but yet, it's Nathaniel Hackett and probably going to be the same playbook that he had in Green Bay because it's hard for some of these guys to play one for so many years and completely switch. So what do you think about it? Is it a good thing for the Bills to play him this early in the season or a bad thing?
I do. I think it's actually a slight advantage for the Bills. It's not a huge one by any means, but I do think there's issues with timing. With Rodgers and his receivers, there's issues with the offensive line and calling out the protections and how he likes certain plays to be blocked that I think are going to take some time to develop. And to your point, I don't think he's going to play very much in the preseason, if at all. And obviously you work on that stuff in training camp, but I don't know that any team would tell you that you've got it completely down the way that you want it in Week 1 or even really all of September and into October. I mean, John McDermott talks a lot about how November and December is when you want your team coming together. And that's not to say that games don't matter in December. Of course they do. But I do think that it's a slight advantage for the Bills in that all of those finely, tuned aspects of an offense in terms of timing and how Rodgers wants routes run and things like that, where he wants those guys to be. I think in Week 1, it's fair to say that they may not be exactly on the same page.
Okay. So we move on to the Raiders, and then we move on to the Washington Commanders. Those early games, and you've made that point in your article reviewing this thing, those early games are the important ones. The Buffalo Bills have to steal as many games early as they possibly can, and why is that?
Well, I just think when you look at the schedule, after you get to Cincinnati in Week 9, and that back half of the schedule is not easy. You've got 3 trips to teams that made the conference championship games last season. That's the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. Now, the Eagles and Chiefs come in back-to-back weeks. There is a bye week in between there,
which nice.
Does help. It absolutely does help. But that is a huge ask for any team. And if you've been following along over the last couple of days, some of the things that have wrote in the paper, Warren Sharp, who I think is an excellent football analyst, you can find him online. He has a strength of schedule formula where he has the Bills as having the second toughest schedule in the NFL. And I think when you look at the back half of that schedule, you can see some reasons why that is. In addition to those 3 road games, you've got a long trip to Los Angeles a couple days before Christmas, and a Chargers team that I think everybody is expecting to be pretty good and to be a playoff contender. You close the season down in Miami. That's I don't anticipate that being an easy game. I think one of the biggest things about this schedule that makes it so challenging is that the AFC East, the days that, the Bills won 6-0 2 or 3 years ago and kind of running through the division without a lot of resistance, I don't know that those are still going to be there. I think if they go 4-2 in the division, they did pretty well. Well, if you go 4-2 in the division, let's say you lose those 3 road games to Philadelphia, to Cincinnati, and to Kansas City, all of a sudden you're at 5 losses, right? I mean, this team went 13th since last season. So, I think they can take a step back in terms of their record while still being a really strong team. And in fact, that's what I expect a little bit here.
There's a couple nice things, I think, with those tough games. So before we go to Cincinnati to play the Bengals, we're coming off that Thursday game we talked about earlier with the Buccaneers. So you do get like the mini bye, gives you a little extra time to try and prepare for the Bengals. And then before you go to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, like you mentioned, in between the Eagles and the Chiefs games, there is a bye week. So that gives you that extra time to try and prepare and be rested for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, if there's two teams that you'd like to have that, if you could do 3, you'd do the Eagles, but that you're getting that little extra break, I think that works in the Bills' favor.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially that game against the Bengals, coming off of the Thursday night game is big too because they're buying so late in the season. Week 13, I don't know. I'd have to go back today. It's actually something I thought about.
I swear, if I
had
kill
a
you,
bye this late in the year. It
just
feels
okay,
like
good.
December. So, a couple of keys there at the beginning of the year is number one, you've got to try to stay healthy, especially the front half of the season, because you're not going to have a lot of time to rest guys until you get to that, as you said there, that bye, which comes after week 8, the Thursday night game. So I think stacking wins early is going to be huge for the team. I think staying healthy is going to be just those late rest weeks, the mini bye, the actual bye before the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be big for them.
Jay Skursky on, Bills beat writer for the Buffalo News, Shred Rig and Show here at 97 Rock. By the way, do the Bills, or do any teams really, get a say in when they take their bye?
Yeah, that's a great question, and they actually do. The
Don't
reason
make
that they
it
do
except
this
I'm
year for the
surprised
Bills
with
is
Mama.
because the teams that host international games, or I don't know if it's host or if it's just play-in international games, get the choice if they would like their bye week to come after that game. So the Bills, obviously, in week 5, go to London. They host the Jacksonville Jaguars in that game. They have decided, obviously based on this schedule, to not take their bye in week 6, and instead they'll come home, they'll play the Giants on Sunday Night Football that week. I don't know that other teams have any say, but I do know that it's the international league teams, and like I said, I'm not sure if it's only the international league that hosts, or if it's both, the host and the participant. But the Bills obviously elected to not have their bye in week 6.
Should be both teams, by the way. It should be, if it's not.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, if you're going all the way over to, if you're going overseas to play a game, I think you should have the choice if you want to take that next week off.
That international game is going to be a lot of fun for Bills fans, whether they get to go or it's just the hype of a different country. But at the same time, the guess is who gets the advantage in something like that. And so for the Bills, they're
playing Jacksonville, who's done it more than anybody.
Right, they're playing Jacksonville. So Jacksonville
was also there the week before.
Might consider that a home game. The Bills have to fly over, so they're going to automatically be jet lagged. It's a new experience for them, for those guys, and so it should be different, fun, but also distracting. However, somebody made the point that Jacksonville will be there the previous week, and that's a long way from home, to be home or to be away from home that long.
But better adjusted to time.
Well, but they were painting it as a disadvantage. That here you have the Jacksonville Jaguars 2 weeks from home, missing all of the comforts and the normal, ups and downs and things that you do. Your routine is broken. What do you make of that? Who gets the advantage in a situation, a specific situation like the Bills playing the Jacksonville Jaguars Sunday on October 8th?
Yeah, it is interesting. You're right, because to your point there, the Jaguars will be accustomed to playing over there. They are accustomed to playing over there. They do it every year. I'm going to lean on my colleague here, Ryan O'Halloran, and he used to cover the Jaguars, and I've talked to him a little bit about this. He's made this trip 5 different times to cover games over there. He's done it, leaving a full week early, leaving a few days before the game. So he's kind of familiar with how the teams do it, and it was his experience in talking to him about it that he said in covering those teams,
I should be dead.
that he got every time he was over there.
Why am I alive?
Get out of there. They were ready to get on a plane and come home.
How am I alive?
I think when you look at it that way, I think it could be a slight disadvantage for the Jaguars. Well, yes, they'll be over there. As you pointed out, that's a long time to be away from home. And it's important to note here, too, that they're changing stadiums, right? They've got one game in Wembley Stadium, and then the game against the Bills is going to be in the Tottenham Stadium. And so I think any semblance of a home field advantage, if it even existed, and I don't believe it does, because
Wait, guys, I'll be
travel, I fully expect this game to be